Alright, so you want to know how to frame bounce. Well today, thanks to Akajaka, aka Uncle Doug, you're going to find out. Now it's in my belief that if you want to start frame bouncing like a true BMX gaming warlord, you need to understand how the bounce be bouncing. So this video will explain the conditions required for a successful frame bounce and the details of how the glitch works, as well as tips for chaining frame bounces. Now, I don't have BMX-tism, so some of the terms I'm using, I'm just making the hell up. Also, there's many ways to frame bounce, and you will likely develop your own way to frame bounce with practice, but this is just how I frame bounce and my understanding of how it works. Starting off, here are my keybinds. Generally, I play capped at 90 FPS, but I only pull about 70 to 80 in public sessions. If your PC is good enough to get 120, I would cap it there. Good places to practice would be airport or LS Canal, as they're clear of obstructions and have flat ground. There are three variations of frame bounces. One steers, one goes straight, and one for height. Each are useful in their own way, but they all require speed, surface, and specific key inputs. This is what a frame bounce looks like. It consists of a regular hop, 180 turn, backwards hop, turn again, and jump in the opposite forward direction. The most difficult part being the BMX position and the final jump. Starting a frame bounce, you need speed. Optimally, you want to be moderate to high speed. If you're going too slow, you either won't bounce or it won't be very high. Moderate speed is just a good start, and letting your back wheel land briefly helps if you're struggling to get the rotation afterwards. You lose a bit of speed doing so, but I think it's worth it. The second thing is surface. If you're trying to bounce on something on an upward or downward slope or angle, it'll be difficult to pull off. I'm not saying it's not possible, but just start on something flat, trust me. Lastly, key inputs. Using BMXs, there's a delay between pressing a key and the game registering it. You can use this to your advantage to make frame bouncing easier. It also matters what keys you press immediately after the frame bounce occurs, which is what makes the different variations of frame bounces. I think it's worth knowing why and how the bounce happens. As far as I understand, the janky angle of the bike creates a sort of pinch point in the physics. Combined with a forward stoppie and a well-timed jump, it forces the front wheel under the map, at which point you get repelled outward from the surface. The stoppie is a crucial part in the process, meaning if you aren't leaning forward to some degree for the final jump, the pinch won't happen. Now for the different bounces. To steer a bounce, you maintain the key input of the last jump. You can then either switch sides for the next frame bounce, or return to the center position and swing back to the same side. Now, I see a lot of people leaning back lots after bouncing when they're trying to chain bounces, and it is very useful, but not in the way you probably think. I tap S to help with leaning and alignment. Allow me to explain. As you probably already know, there's a point in which when leaning back far enough, the BMX starts turning on a different axis. However, if you maintain the perfect angle, leaning back results in the back wheel swinging around and the bike turning in a circle. If you watch carefully, you can see me using this mechanic to assist with turning and swing the back wheel into perfect position for the following bounce. I sometimes only tap it unless I see that I'm not leaned back far enough, at which point I react in time. Another important detail which gets overlooked is the turning momentum I gain towards the ground before I flick in the opposite direction. If I had to guess, this just helps force the wheel into the ground and counteract the flick in the opposite direction. This is also a good time to show you how input delay is goated. A critical part of the bounce is what I call charging the jump, which is simply holding the jump in midair. A lot of people think the timing is to release the jump the moment your wheels touch the ground. However, using input delay, you have a small window to release the jump above the ground. Doing so, the game cannot act on that input because the BMX is airborne. The thing that makes this so good is that once your wheels touch the ground, it can act upon that input and basically gives you a perfectly timed jump without fail. So basically, just jump a bit early, mate. Give it a watch without me yapping.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
In my opinion, the hardest bounce to do is the OG bounce. Unlike the first, it requires the most amount of quickly timed inputs. but doing them in public sessions is just aura, and if you get too tired of the regular bounce, these are also pretty fun.
I'm AI with the braids. I'm AI with the braids.
It's basically the same as the first, only instead of flicking and holding, you flick and return to the same direction you had initially, at which point you hold the diagonal momentarily and A or D until you rotate around, which normally isn't a problem because you hold momentum very easily with this bounce. You'll probably have to let go of the keys in order to avoid turning too much. And then you got this piece of shit which just makes you go high and lose all your speed. It's pretty much the same as the regular bounce, only you lean back immediately after bouncing. I think a lot of people accidentally hit these because they're trying to chain for the first time and they think leaning back straight away will help them align for the second one. I don't really like this bounce because you can get high just fine using the others, but it is useful in some situations. And that's about it. A lot of it just comes down to practice and muscle memory. When I came back to GTA and found out they changed the physics, it probably took me about a month of practicing a few hours a day to get it down pretty consistently, and I'd never used a keyboard and mouse for BMX before. But hopefully this video helps and you'll be bouncing like this in no time.
Well,